Oh, hey YouTube. I built a glam bot. Well, if I'm being really honest with myself, built's probably the wrong word. It was more like a threat, but as it turns out, it's not very sustainable. So I'm gonna actually make one. Just so we're all on the same page, Glambot is the name given to the robotic arm and slow motion camera often seen on those fancy red carpets. Its value? Just shy of $1 million. My budget, on the other hand, comes in just shy of zero. So if we want to do this ourselves, we're gonna have to cut some pretty serious corners while somehow not sacrificing the quality of the shot. But how on earth is that gonna be possible? How am I, a wildly unqualified, albeit beautifully polite young man, gonna be able to create a robotic arm that is as good as one an industry has spent years, dare I say decades, invested millions in designing, refining, redesigning? How am I gonna be able to create a robotic arm to compete with that? Sorry about before, I think I got a little carried away there because I don't even think that I need to build a robotic arm, and I'll show you what I mean. Let's take a closer look at the shot from the Glambot that we actually want to recreate. If we track the camera, we can then see that the robotic arm is actually moving that camera in a reasonably straight line. And that might be our first cuttable corner, because as cool as that robotic arm is, it doesn't really seem like it offers any foundational advantages that we couldn't achieve in a different and potentially simpler way. And we can prove it. Let's construct a replica 3D scene. Instead of using the Glambot's originally curved trajectory, let's constrain the camera so that it can only move in a straight line. And look at that, the shot looks super similar despite using a far simpler mechanism. So why don't we just ditch the robotic arm entirely and instead build something much simpler, like a really big, really fast camera slider? Now don't get me wrong, that idea absolutely has its drawbacks, not the least of which is being able to see the rail in parts of the shot, but we've just proven it's perfectly capable of getting a very similar shot, and the huge benefit is that there is a chance that I'll be able to build it. There is basically zero chance that I'd be able to build a robotic arm to do what we need it to do. So, really big camera slider sounds like a great plan. Coming down to the lighter day, we got to make up the frame for the camera slider, I salvaged 4 of these 2-meter long shower curtain rails out of this pot at the back of this big warehouse thing. Boonings. I then joined them all together using some laser cut MDF and 3D printed parts. For the gantry, I 3D printed some housings and made some crude but pretty functional linear bearings. I then joined these all together using more MDF. Now we need a way to move the gantry. Most normal sized camera sliders use a stepper motor like this because they're cheap, precise, and they're powerful enough. But there isn't much normal about the camera slider that we're making, so I got the biggest stepper motor I could find. After 3D printing some mounts, some pulleys, and a tensioner for the belt, it was time to test it out. Now it may not look like it, but that is a pretty promising start. But we are going to have to go much faster, and it appears that we are at the edge of what this stepper motor can handle. But can we really blame the stepper motor for this? No, because the problem is me. Or more specifically, very small versions of myself. Well, you can tell. A microhenry is a unit used to measure electrical inductance, which put very simply is something I am nowhere near qualified enough to lecture you on, so here's my musician brother Josh to explain.
What is inductance?
I don't know. Oh. Bugger. Well, I guess you're just gonna have to trust me that this is the solution.
Look at the size of that.
This is a servo motor, and unlike its stepper counterparts, it's able to retain so much more of its torque up to a much higher RPM, and it still has the positional control. This specific servo motor came from a company called Technic, and I wanna give a shout out to Nick, who works at Technic, because he was so helpful with just whatever question I have, even things that weren't related to servo motors. And I don't have any affiliation with the brand, but I do just wanna say thank you, Nick. Now, this has 6 horsepower and up to 25 Newton meters of torque. If this were powering a boat in the state of Tasmania, you would need a license to drive it.
Oh, it's beautiful though. So now I have to get that puppy on the slider.
Man. Well, I guess that shower curtain rails and MDF are not the best materials for building a camera slider out of. Who would have guessed? Well, good news, the motor has more than enough power. Our new problem is when we try and tension the belt, the MDF ends just warp and we can't get the belt tight enough. And the belt ends up just slipping on the pulley, and that's why we were seeing the crashes. So to fix this warping, I had the new ends cut out of 6mm steel. Our other problem was the join where the shower curtain rails met the MDF was nowhere near rigid enough. And as a result, whenever the slider would move, the whole thing would just like wobble and walk its way around. So I thought it would be a great idea to make the rails out of steel as well. That way I could weld the whole thing together and it would be perfect with no drawbacks at all. Now, just a quick catch up for anyone that doesn't know much about welding, and Henry, please listen up here. Welding is a process where things get so hot that metal melts. Okay, cool. Glad everyone heard that. Let's get into it.
And today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 healthiest foods.
Think you want like a baby, back to the track, kind of a maniac. So I move it in and we unpack. It's the same as yesterday.
Because of how long the slider now was, I wanted to add a truss so it could support its weight in the middle. Without any of the supports, very wobbly. Weird. Look at that.
You don't know my mind. You don't know my kind. Like necessities, I'm part of my design. Tell the world that I'm
Nothing's straight anymore.
on the sky.
Trying to be a YouTuber.
Wait, sorry, stop, hold on. Did he just say that nothing's straight anymore? Because that sort of sounds like the kind of thing that'll get. Oh, sorry, keep going. With the frame now finished, it's probably time to start thinking about where we want to take this slider when it's done and who we want to be in front of. I was testing out this like new up and coming app called Instagram. I doubt you guys have heard of it. Actually, I'll put a little sample on the screen just so you don't feel left out. But basically I was scrolling through, because that's what you do on the app, you scroll. And I came across this dancer who dances in puddles, which sounds kind of strange, but when you see it, it's actually like super effective and it looks really cool. Now, I doubt you guys can see it because your eyes probably aren't as good as mine, but 600 kilometers in that direction is this like huge salt lake, which at this time of the year fills up with like a really thin layer of water. So it turns into essentially just like a giant puddle. And you'll probably see where I'm going with this. Imagine if we had the dancer who just loves to dance in puddles on this giant puddle and we had the camera slider there. How cool would that be? If you're asking me, and you're not, this is very one-sided conversation, but that's the subject and that's the location that I think we need. So I've already sent that young dancer an email and hopefully he gets back, but I'll let you guys know and I will let you get back to whatever you were doing before I rudely interrupted, and that's enough Instagram.
I'm in Detroit with Khadijah, like 10.
All right, we need the camera to be able to look around. So I made this, which means we now have 3 axes that we need to control in coordination, and the way that we do it is really important. Have a look at this shot that we managed to get before the shower curtain rail slider broke. If you look really closely, you'll notice it sucks. Now, to be fair, it is looking extra dramatic here because on every change in acceleration, the sensor inside of my camera is just slamming against the side of the body, but it's still a good illustration of how poorly our motion paths are set up. But this problem is actually very fixable, and the chances are you solve it almost every day. So let's do a fun little experiment. All right, we're here with Anae. Now, just quickly, Anae, you're here under your own will. That's beside the point. Okay, so basically we're gonna start down here in the car and we're gonna come up around the corner at about 30 kilometers an hour. Once we reach this pole right here, we're gonna start braking until we come to a stop in this bay in front of us. We did 2 of these runs and came to a stop in the shortest amount of time on the first attempt. Which one felt more comfortable?
The first one.
Well, isn't that interesting? The shorter of the 2 braking zones was also the most comfortable. Now, I'm willing to bet you know why this is. And even if you don't, I reckon you'll still instinctively do it. In the second attempt, I just jammed my foot on the brakes. And this is the same kind of acceleration we were able to achieve with my motors. Constant acceleration. But as we saw, constant acceleration is very uncomfortable and it leaves the system really unsettled. Take a look at how much the car wobbles when it comes to a stop. If you were a camera, which one would you prefer more?
I think that's a hard question to ask.
Because you're not a camera, fair enough. So then, what was different about the more comfortable first attempt? Well, I, like most drivers, gradually increased the braking pressure and then gradually decreased it before we stopped. And you can see how much more settled the car is at the end of this. So we just need to copy this same acceleration profile for the 3 axes of our slider and we should have beautiful motion. Oh, but if only it was that easy. I spent weeks in Arduino trying to work out how to give our acceleration curve a rate of change, but it was above me, for sure. However, in the depths of my research, I stumbled across a really cool motion control program that lets you use an Arduino as an interface interface to be able to control up to 8 motors. And all we need to do is plug the motors into our Arduino, the Arduino into the computer, and then inside of our motion control program, we just click here, and look at that. Acceleration curves to the 3rd order, just like we saw in my car before. How cool is that? And with that, we have everything we need to give the slider its first run.
Can we move it way? Wrong button. Wrong button.
Look, that one was on me. I did indeed press the wrong button, and as a result, that Henry now needs to drive all the way to the city to re-laser cut that MDF and then come back up and put it all together. So while we wait for him to return, let's try and work out what camera we're gonna use. The real Glambot uses this, which shoots in 4K at 1,000 frames per second, but costs $240,000 US. We, on the other hand, are gonna use this, which shoots in 4K at 1,000 frames per second, but only costs $17,000 US. Now, I know how crazy prefacing that number with the word only sounds, but when you look at what it's capable of, that is pretty impressive. It's a proper big boy camera, but that means it comes with big boy responsibilities, like manual focus. Fortunately for us, DJI just released their brand new LiDAR autofocus system, and it essentially gives our cinema camera, which only has manual focus, the most OP autofocus you have ever seen. DJI very kindly lent me the system for a few weeks so that I could use it on the slider.
Oh, we've got a sticker as well? I wonder if I have to return that.
But honestly, this thing is handy for not even just like video related things. Oh, I bet you're wondering how far away that tree is. 3.28 meters, no worry. The car over there, 9.1, not bad. How far are you away? 0.73. Back off! Sorry. You probably noticed that we are still missing our camera, and that's because despite the bargain that we found, it still costs $1,000 a day to hire, meaning I really have a maximum of 1 day's worth of use with this camera. So before I go and halve my net worth, I want to make sure that everything is working flawlessly. So let's go see how Henry got on reassembling the slider. Oh, nice, looking good. Wait, hold on, is that all of the electronics balancing on a board, balancing on a bucket, balancing on a stool? Oh God. That was 3 weeks worth of work, but it will all be worth it. You just wait. Your brain is about to be blown. You are about to see the next thing, the beginning of a revelation. Well, that was underwhelming. I mean, the vibrations are horrible, but I just don't get it. Why?
Welding is a process where things get so hot that metal melts.
No, nothing
metal melts.
straight anymore. It's like very bold. Nothing
What are you going to do?
I think I'm just going to go with the hoping it's not a problem technique.
Well, I guess that you guys are probably going to try and tell me that I missed a bunch of fairly sizable warning flags there, but I don't think it's worth playing the blame game because, well, who does that help? The problem was the rails. Unfortunately, my horrific welding of the truss onto the rails had caused warping to a pretty severe extent, and this is what was causing all those bumps. I spent the next few weeks trying anything I could think of to try and fix the vibrations, but short of remaking the whole frame and being far more careful with my welding, nothing was going to help. Really not wanting to rebuild the entire frame, it was time to take some fairly desperate action. Stabilization. I was trying to avoid using stabilization on this because it sort of felt like cheating, but being honest never got me anywhere. So stabilization it is. Run it! Within just 1.6 meters of the gantry's travel, the slider is moving at its top speed of 24.5 kilometers an hour. It accelerates at 26.9 meters per second, meaning it would theoretically reach 100 kilometers an hour in just 1.03 seconds. But like none of that means anything unless the shot looks good, and we can't know if the shot looks good until I hire the camera, and I can't hire the camera until I hear back from the dancer, so... At this stage, I've been working on this project for 7 months, and I was approaching the what on earth am I doing with my life phase. So I decided that enough was enough, and I was going to hire the camera for this coming weekend, and one way or another, we were going to get this shot. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it for this Friday then, that would be great. Thank you. Done. With the camera now locked in, and still no response from the dancer, time was running out. But I wasn't ready to quit just yet. I really wanted a dancer in this shot, and there was still one way of contacting him that I hadn't yet tried. What is that way, you might ask? Well, it's Snapchat. Did I just send him a photo? Realistically, I should have quit. Oh, I screen recorded the chat. I didn't mean to do that. no. Oh no, he said I screen recorded it twice. Oh, I've ruined everything. I've ruined my chances. That's horrible. I'm gonna stop screen recording at once. Completely out of ideas, with only 3 days till the camera arrived and the added fear of now looking like a predator, I was running out of hope. But they say it's in your darkest hour that it's easiest to see the light. This is Holly, a super talented dancer who had her own dance competition on this weekend, so unfortunately she couldn't do the dancing for us, but she was very kindly willing to try and teach me. Holly had created us a little dance routine that perfectly synced with the movements of the camera slider and took into account the fact that some of the footage was going to be slowed down. Yeah, really. She even included my little dance move from earlier because she thought it was cool. So thank you, Holly.
Okay.
Great, thank you. But with that, the time had come to head home and finish packing up so we could leave the next morning. Hey, press it again and we'll stop it. It's been a big effort for all of us to get to this point, you guys watching as well, so I think we should spend this drive reflecting on how it feels to have liked and subscribed. Now, obviously if you haven't done that yet, you have to go and do it so you can partake in this exercise, but I'll tell you how I feel. I feel bloody lucky to have you guys on my team. Thank you. Alright, we have made it to Lake Gedna. Apparently out there, the salt is like 1.8 meters thick, which is wild, but very irrelevant for today because this lake is normally home to a lot of land speed records. But today, we are attempting a very different speed record, and that is the world's fastest camera slider.
Oh my, my, what you do to me? Like lightning when I'm swimming in the sea. From the very first time we loved, from the very first time we touched.
But just as we were ready to start filming, I broke this magical black box. This little box's job is to burn off the huge amount of excess electricity that's created from the motor decelerating. Without it, we can only use about 20% of the maximum torque. There was nothing I could do to fix it, so we were just gonna have to run the motor at a slower speed. And this was so shattering. It meant that the routine that Holly and I had spent so long practicing now no longer worked. So I was gonna have to do what any good dancer would do, improvise.
There's an energy when you hold me, when you touch me, it's so powerful.
But remember, I'm not a good dancer, so I just sort of stuck to the one move that I knew.
You touch me, it's so powerful.
Guys, I think I messed up. Do you ever get so fixated on an idea that you just entirely neglect to consider if it still or ever even was relevant to what you were actually trying to achieve? Like, does the shot look cool? Kind of. Would it have looked cooler if everything went to plan? Probably, but didn't we set out to create a glam bot? I don't think we've demonstrated we did that. And that's really annoying because we put in so much work to get here. But what if that's the point of the video? What if the whole thing was to teach us that sometimes it's okay to not nail a shot? Sometimes it's okay to not deliver on a promise. In this case, maybe being close enough actually is good enough. Fine.
I can feel it when you hold me, when you touch me. It's so powerful. There's an energy when you hold me, when you touch me. It's so powerful. What are we going to do? Whatever you want. I can feel it when you hold me, when you touch me. It's so powerful.
Hold me in your arms, burns like fire. Electricity, when you're close, I feel the sparks. Takes me high to infinity.
Well guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. It's so great to be at this point. And it's so good to have you at this point as well, you know? Because if you're at this point, it means you've watched the whole thing and you've obviously enjoyed it. Unless maybe you're one of the few people that I had someone, like I'd hire. Basically,
Everybody loves somebody.
yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to say. So I think with that, I'm gonna crack open our fun little drink. What's wrong with you? Do you not? Oh, you don't have a blue V to open? Oh, God. Okay, I'll send you to red carpet, Henry. He has something for you. Come back to me when you're done, okay? Wait, what did I do with it? Oh, wait, here it is.
It involves one of those photo booth things that you go inside. I think it's called a photo booth, yeah. Well, I should know this because it's my company. It's me and my friend Jeremy's company. We started it from scratch about a year ago in East Adelaide.